With the election of the first black president of the United States of America, many people said that prejudice and racism in the United States were a thing of the past. But the recent events in Ferguson, Missouri tell us another story. Today on The Real USA, racism in the United States. I'm Alexandra Hall. As you watch these stories, I encourage you to follow us and post your comments to our Twitter @TelesurEnglish. Welcome. At the peak of a series of demonstrations, protests, and teach-ins called Ferguson October, a weekend of resistance, over 1,000 people marched in downtown St. Louis demanding justice for Michael Brown. Some called it a milestone in the fight for civil rights. Let's look back at what happened.
A demonstration that makes history.
This is what democracy looks like.
Thousands of people meet in Missouri's capital to fight against systematic racism in the United States, on the contrary to August demonstrations triggered by Michael Brown's shooting. According to a federal judge, constitutional rights were violated. In this opportunity, police forces kept their distance.
Well, I don't think the judge said we violated civil rights. We just talked about that process to make sure we were doing that in a proper manner. And so there were some aspects of we could have done better. So.
It took them 11 hours to come from South Dakota. However, that did not make them hesitate.
It's the first time in years that people have gotten to have a mass fight back against police brutality. Of course it's major.
Different organizations, labor unions, and families from all over the country joined together to speak up. Among them, we have MARCIA and her daughter, who support the fight for civil rights.
It's important to carry the message on to the youth, and she cares about justice also, and she said, let's go.
It took them 11 hours to come from South Dakota. However, that did not make them hesitate.
We're fighting. We're trying to get change. It sucks.
With the sound of drums and trumpet, they pluck up courage because they know there are still many battles to be fought.
Nosotros también nos hemos fundido con esta marcha y por el ambiente que se vive estamos seguros de que se quedará en la mente de todos los aquí presentes. FRANCESCA, EMANUELE, San Luis, Missouri, Telesur.
On day 3 of the weekend of resistance, activists organized a hip-hop concert to demand justice for Michael Brown and Von Derek Myers. They said that music is a tool for social justice.
This is a street that will be empty any other day. However, today it is overcrowded. This is the third day of action against racism and police brutality. And as they await to enter a hip-hop concert, they tell us what they have learned from these 3 days.
Learned are probably 3 major things. One is that movement is alive and well, both here in St. Louis and across this country, that it's international in focus, and that we're recognizing the intersections between people's oppression, whether it be gender oppression or national oppression, other things. And I think what I've also seen is that, you know, the people are peaceful even if they have righteous anger.
Inside here, music is in every corner of the venue. Hip-hop is a means of expression with no comparison. It goes from your ears right to your heart. And with Rebel Diaz, a hip-hop group from the Bronx, nobody can stop dancing.
Hip-hop is a really important part of resistance movements because resistance is not just about protesting and marching, it's also about dancing and fun and partying and being together and sharing community.
For them, hip-hop is more than music. As it was created by Latin and Afro-American people, it had to be present in this weekend fight against racism. In here, there is no difference as for skin color, which is mixed with a faint light and with a rhythm and lyrics that highlight.
I myself make music, so I'm a big believer in hip-hop culture, hip-hop music and rap music as a tool for social justice or a tool to discuss kind of the mistakes of our culture.
Out there are spontaneous demonstrations in every corner. Kids, youth, and even the elderly dance as they gently shout. This is what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
They hope music encourages a movement aiming for a better and equalitarian world.
Francesca Emanuele, San Luis, Missouri, Telesur.
According to national media, the population of Ferguson, Missouri is 67% African American, while 50 out of 53 police officers there are white.
Hands up, don't shoot! A weekend of resistance. This is how they call the fourth day of demonstration after an African-American, Michael Brown, was shot dead by a police officer 2 months ago.
You are here! You are here! For black and brown!
In this opportunity, hundreds come from all over the country to call for justice and for an end to resistance. The rain couldn't stop the protesters from expressing their opinion. They march and shout because they want their message, and they do so outside the prosecutor's office.
Here today in Chicago, first of all in the spirit of my friend Dominique Franklin, who was murdered by the Chicago Police Department a few months ago for stealing from a convenience store. Every day in my city and across the country, people are being killed. Brown people, black people are being killed. And I'm tired of it.
At nightfall, an altar is set to honor and youth victims of people brutality, proving that racism killed. Candles are lit, with them people start singing.
People are tired of burying their sons and their children. People are weary of having to hold their breath as their children walk out of the street. And they're grieving, you know, and it's generational. I mean, they're grieving layers and layers of injustice and sorrow.
Meanwhile, demonstrations erupt here and there in Ferguson Police Department. People's voices join to remember that the lives of African American people and other minorities matter. And they tell the police so with their rap music here in Missouri State, where 3 Afro-American youth were killed by police officers in the last 2 months.
The camera is mounted on the officer's glasses. To activate it, he simply pushes a button on his waist. Denver Police Chief Robert White pushed strongly for a program requiring all his officers to wear these cameras, saying they'll make his department more credible.
I think it helps the officers be very mindful that everything they do is, for the most part, is being recorded and being audio. So it makes them a little bit more aware and a little bit more responsible in maybe in some of the decisions that they would make.
The recent police killing in Ferguson, Missouri of black teen Michael Brown came just weeks after a black man in New York died after police put him in a chokehold. Chief White says these types of controversial deaths have heightened the need for police to record their interactions with the public.
Let's just take this past year. You know, look at Ferguson, New York, St. Louis, LA, Denver, you know, pretty much any of our cities, particularly our major cities, there are always incidents out there that are controversial. And sometimes you don't have all the facts. And then what happens is you run into a scenario which I call not sustained. You have this side of this account of what occurred and that account of what occurred. The body cam potentially is a great tool to resolve that conflict.
Alex Landau is a Denver resident who strongly supports the use of the cameras.
It's not rocket science that if you're on camera, you're not going to break the law, you know, and if you do break the law, you're not going to be able to lie your way out of it.
Landau became a victim of extreme police violence when he was pulled over for a routine traffic stop in Denver in 2009.
They responded with violence, and I was beaten within inches of my life with fists, a radio, a flashlight. I had a gun put to my head. I was laughed at afterwards and called a nigger when I regained consciousness.
The American Civil Liberties Union says the wider use of cameras should reduce the amount of police violence. But they also warn that the technology is not foolproof.
We can't just implement them, you know, put them on every police officer and think we've solved all the problems. There's a lot of there's a lot of detail that we need to look at.
Okay. The ACLU and similar groups worry about how the recordings will be saved and possibly edited, and they also hope the privacy of all citizens will be respected. Cities that have been using these cameras say they've helped lead to a reduction in police use of force and have also helped to improve the relationship with the community. That's the goal here in Denver and in other cities across the U.S., where tension over recent police violence remains high. Mary McCarthy for TESSA, Denver.
We need to stop police abuse. This is the motto of organizations such as Cop Watch, which are concerned about more African-American people being victims of police abuse after 43-year-old Eric Garner was throttled by a police officer during an arrest over illegal cigarette selling July 17.
It's really, really sad, and these aren't the first two. That there have been 1,000 more across America that have been impacted by this kind of state-sanctioned violence, and it's because it's primarily Black and Latino communities that are impacted by this. And so time and time again, we are forced to fight and get justice.
After Garner's murder in New York neighborhoods, different organizations and volunteers deliver information helping to raise awareness on what their rights are when facing the police.
Like now, nobody's respecting nobody, like the police is just coming and just, using their power basically on everybody.
Also, many young men decided to express on walls their rejection of police abuse towards minorities in New York.
The message that we want to portray is strong relationships and communication between community members makes us safe.
There is a video showing 43-year-old Gardner being attacked by the police. However, the authorities have not arrested the officer, but the person who recorded the event.
It's definitely the American justice system at large is flawed. It definitely discriminates against certain people based on the way they look.
According to Joined Communities for a Change in Police organization, Eric Gardner's death joins other victims of police brutality such as Tamerly Gran and Sean Bell. These two cases have not been solved and its perpetuators are still free.
Congresistas en Nueva York han enviado una carta al fiscal general de Estados Unidos pidiendo que el caso de Eric Garner sea investigado por el Departamento de Justicia Federal. KARINA, Cartagena, Telesur, Nueva York.
The excessive use of force is not unknown in New York. That is why several organizations are training New Yorkers and monitoring violent actions of the police.
The reason we're encouraging people to cop watch is because we've been seeing, more and more it's always been happening, but we've been seeing more that there's a lot of police abuse that's happening, whether it's profiling, whether it's physical abuse, whether it's unnecessary arrests.
People attending these talks consider important to know what their rights are and to learn how to safely and effectively record violent actions of the police.
And so we're basically teaching people not only how to best film the police when you see them harassing somebody or preparing to harass somebody, but also we're teaching people techniques and skills of what to say to the police, what to say to the person who's being stopped by the police.
According to the organizers, the awareness of the community will help to record and show police brutality against the poorest communities.
No, police have terrorized and brutalized our communities, especially communities of color, for as long as we've been here. And it's nothing new. It's part of the program of keeping communities of color, especially communities of color, repressed.
In New York, citizens have published videos and photos in recent months disclosing police brutality, as it is the case of Eric Gardner, who allegedly died as he was arrested after a police officer had him in an arm lock.
Well, that's all for today on The Real USA. Don't forget to send your suggestions and comments to our Twitter @Telesur English. I'm Alexandra Hall. See you next time.